Today, we're going to take a look at the Envoy, a 65% custom mechanical keyboard kit from Mode Designs, which starts at $219. And before we dive in, I want to mention this video is not sponsored at all, and I bought the Envoy myself. If you work from home, whether it's for yourself or for a remote job, you spend a lot of time with your keyboard. And one of the reasons that custom mechanical keyboards have gotten more popular over the last few years, besides the fact that building and tinkering with them can be a lot of fun, is that custom keyboards can offer higher quality and more artistic aesthetics than some of the keyboards from big name brands. It's kind of like having a piece of designer furniture. It's a personal expression and something that you enjoy looking at and using. But until recently, custom mechanical keyboards were pretty expensive. And one of the reasons is not just because the kits themselves are expensive, but because they don't come with everything that you need to actually make a finished keyboard. Now, while this is still generally true with the Mode Envoy and Mode's other keyboards like the Sonnet, they have done a few things to make the pricing more accessible. For example, upgrading from the soldered to the hot swap PCB only increases the cost here by $7. And they offer some bundle pricing discounts if you decide to get a set of keycaps from them or a set of switches to complete your build. I also went with the FR4 plate, which does not increase the price, and I went with the standard gray weight, which also doesn't increase the price. I did go for the walnut accent, so the total price of the kit before the switches and keycaps came out to $234. And it does include this really nice carry case with all of these different compartments, and they do a great job of packaging and protecting all of the parts. You've got your plate here, and your PCB is in bubble wrap. Really nice packaging and a nice storage or travel case that you get included. Now, if you do want to go with Mode keycaps and you buy them at the same time, you can get a bundle price on a set of keycaps for $59, which actually is a very reasonable price for a quality set of keycaps. Theirs are an ABS PBT blend. They are double shot. And then you can also add a set of switches. Now, these are Mode's anthracite silent tactiles, and silent switches aren't everybody's cup of tea, but I wanted to check them out, so I went for those. I honestly probably will swap in some linear switches after trying these out because I don't know if I'm going to love the silent switches myself. But depending on the switches you pick, they will add anywhere from $45 to $49 to the cost. And then you can also add a set of Durock V2 stabilizers, which I did for a price of $12. Now, with all of this included, it brought the total cost of this configuration up to $344, but you can certainly supply your own switches and your own keycaps if you already have some, or if you just have different ones that you would like. Now, one other thing that's worth pointing out about the world of custom keyboards, especially if you're newer to it, a lot of the keyboards that you'll find in kits like this from multiple different manufacturers, they're not going to have the same feature set that some of the more mainstream consumer brand keyboards have. So things like wireless connectivity are not going to be as common for these enthusiast type keyboards. The Envoy does not have wireless connectivity, it is wired only. There are some out there that do come with wireless connectivity or offer it as an option, but it's just less common than with like mainstream Logitech keyboards and things like that. The Mode Envoy is QMK-VIA compatible though, so you can do all the customization you want to it. Now, the only other thing that I added, which is an additional cost, is the foam kit. So that includes a few pieces of foam here. You've got a switch pad, which is very, very thin. Then you've got two layers here of Poron foam, one which goes in between the PCB and the plate. And I'm going to use both the switch pad and the foam that goes between the PCB and the plate, but I'm not going to add any extra foam to the bottom of the case, at least not yet. One other nice touch that Mode provides is they actually give you a little screwdriver and then the bits that you need for that screwdriver. Of course, I always find it helpful to have some tweezers, and you are probably going to want to have some Krytox lube on hand, as well as a lube brush for the stabilizers, because the stabilizers are just not going to sound great if they're not lubed at all. All right, so let's get to the build. The build begins, of course, by taking everything out of the package. We've got the plate there, we've got our PCB here, and we have an FR4 plate, as well as a hot swap PCB with Kailh sockets. And then in the bottom of the case, we are going to find our keyboard case, as well as the weight and our wood accent. There are our lattice blocks, and now we're going to be putting in the weight. We'll start with that, and our wood accent. Installing the daughter board is also very straightforward with just 4 small screws. And then we're going to go ahead and insert our lattice blocks. I'm going to go with the softer, squishier ones there rather than the solid ones. Then we've got our switch plate and our PCB assembly here. Now we're going to assemble all of our stabilizers, and I'm going to add these stabilizer pads to the PCB. Now we're going to install the stabilizers once they are assembled, and then I will go ahead and start the lubing process for the stabilizers. And also, don't be like me and forget to put the switch pad down before you install the stabilizer bars. There we go. Now I've actually got all of the stabilizer bars put back, and there goes the foam between the PCB and the plate. And now we've got the PCB attached to the plate. So now we can actually go ahead and see how this whole assembly fits into the case. And it just really rests on top of those blocks, but there are 2 mounting screws that go from the top of the plate down into the case bottom. Now we can go ahead and install our switches. And then our keycaps. That was easy. And there we go, our fully assembled Mode Envoy, looking pretty darn nice and a very straightforward build. All right, so I really enjoyed this build. Overall, it went together really easily, and I really like this case color. This is the Mirage color. I think it looks great with this walnut accent, and I think it's gonna look great on my desk. The switches, on the other hand, you know, like I said earlier, you kind of have to have an acquired taste for silent switches, or if you're gonna be using this like in an office or a shared working space, I could see maybe it being necessary, but yeah, I just don't love silent switches in general. The tactile feel of them is pretty nice. The force required for them is middle of the road, not super heavy, but definitely not light. Now it's time to use the Envoy for a week, and then I'll let you know my overall thoughts. All right, so I've been using the Envoy now for the past week. Let's talk about my experience. First things first. This is a classy keyboard. I've really enjoyed the minimal but still elegant design. Now, I also really like how Mode lets you customize this accent that's across the back, because you could choose to keep it a little bit more subtle, like this wood insert, or you can go with one of the more flashy materials if that's more your style or fits with your setup. It really fits with what I said in the opening of this video about enthusiast or hobbyist level keyboards being kind of like a piece of designer furniture. You don't just enjoy typing on them, of course that's the priority, but you also enjoy the way they look. You appreciate the design styling and the effort that went into them. But let's get into some more specifics here. So, knowing this kit starts in the low 200s, and there are a lot of much more expensive enthusiast level custom mechanical keyboards out there, is there any evidence of cost savings? I would say for the most part, no. There's nothing about this keyboard that screams budget or cost savings or anything like that. If I was sort of nitpicking, then the only thing I could really say that I noticed a little bit of, the bottom case foam or the under PCB foam that comes in the foam kit, to me, I didn't find that this did very much to the sound profile. Not a bad sound in terms of like the characteristic of the sound, it's just the volume's actually a touch high for me. I was able to use VIA with the Envoy, no problem. I opened up the online VIA app and it recognized it right away. When I was talking about how these custom mechanical keyboards usually don't have all of the features and functionality that a lot of pre-built keyboards have, like wireless connectivity and all of that kind of stuff. I think I may have mentioned that the Envoy doesn't have any RGB lighting or any backlighting. I actually was wrong. I found in VIA a control for lighting, which I assumed wasn't gonna do anything, but I still tried it anyway. And there actually is backlighting here that you can turn up in the VIA controls, and it's nothing special, but it's there. So if I did say that there was no lighting at the beginning of the video, that was wrong. There actually is some backlighting that you can can control in VIA. Now the typing feel overall, I do like that mounting block style design. It's unique, it's different. I like that they give you two options in the box to go ahead and kind of swap between the more stiff, those black little blocks that are more stiff, and then the green color lattice blocks that are a little more squishy. You can even put some of each in there if you want to kind of get somewhere in between. I like that. I like that they tried to do something new and different. They try to innovate a little bit there. Ultimately, I prefer the softer, squishier lattice blocks for a bouncier typing feel. But the one thing that the execution of it, I think, takes away from it slightly is the way that they have the whole assembly mounted. So there's two of these screws that have a little rubber gasket on them. They go in the top of the PCB and actually attach the whole assembly to the case bottom. And that is so that when you pick up the keyboard, move it around, that doesn't happen. But when you do that, when you have these installed like they're supposed to be, it actually, in my experience, it significantly reduces the amount of bounce and flex that you get out of that whole PCB assembly. And for somebody that likes a lot of bounce and flex while typing, that's kind of a bummer. Or you could do what I did and just leave them out and take a risk. I'm sure Mode would not recommend that, but there is quite a bit more bounce here and more flex without those screws installed. Now, I do like Mode's keycaps. I do think they are very nice quality. The legends on them are all nice and crisp. The double shot quality, it's a full double shot. It's not just like a little dab of double shot in the top of the keycap. It's a nice layer. I should mention though, like once we get into this sort of level of keyboard, the enthusiast or the hobbyist level, everything is just so subjective and down to personal preference. I feel like I need to point out some things that I wouldn't even bother pointing out about keyboards that are, more budget friendly, fully assembled, kind of mass market type keyboards. So one of the things I'll mention about the keycaps is that these legends I noticed are pretty large and pretty bold. And that may not be everybody's preference, especially when you compare them to, like keycap sets from PBT fans, which I have a couple of those. I really like the PBT fans. And when you look at the legends on a set of those side by side with these legends are they're pretty large and bold. And so if you prefer a little bit more of a subtle look, they might not be your favorite keycaps just because of that. In terms of feel, they are an ABS PBT blend, and they feel kind of somewhere in the middle between PBT and ABS. They're a little more smooth than my all PBT keycaps, or most of them. But they're not super smooth. In general, I also do appreciate that Mode offers that sort of bundling discount on the keycaps and the switches and even the stabilizers. So overall, would I recommend the Mode Envoy as sort of an entry-level enthusiast, hobbyist, custom mechanical keyboard? Well, as I mentioned, in this world of enthusiast level keyboards, there's just so much subjectivity as to whether, the design is something that you like, whether the functionality is, meets your needs. But I can say there's nothing here that would make me say you should avoid it. Of course, if the 65% layout doesn't, fit your needs, if that's just something that won't work for you, then yeah, the Envoy only comes in a 65%, so you would have to look at other options. Mode does have a couple other keyboards. They actually just came out with an even smaller 60% layout, but they also have the Sonnet, which is a 75. But if the 65% layout does meet your needs, if that's what you're looking for, then the Envoy is a nice option. So let me know down in the comments what you think of the Mode Envoy. Let me know if you have the Envoy or any other keyboard made by Mode Designs and how you're liking it. Let me know if you have any questions about the Envoy as well, and do me a favor and hit that like button if the video was helpful for you. Thank you to all subscribers. I really do appreciate your support. Thanks everybody. See you next time.